thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 8 of Fundamental Laws, a report of the 68th Convocation of the Rose+croix Order. Reincarnation. Ever since man was, there has been thousands of problems which have confronted him and have absorbed his attention. He has at all times wrestled mentally with the solution of some of the mysteries which he has encountered in his everyday life. What is sleep? What is a dream? What is breath? What is life? These and countless others have caused him to rack his brain in his efforts to comprehend them. But these propositions have been mostly for the thinkers of the ages, those who have stopped in the busy workaday world and have pondered upon the why of existence. The common mass of men either had no time to study about these things or else have taken them as a matter of fact, as so many things about us are taken, and have been content to eke out their existence and take things as they come to them, not knowing why or caring how or whence they came. There are, however, two phases of human existence which thrust themselves preeminently upon each individual that is born into the world, no matter in what clime, no matter whether that man be what the rest of his fellows calls high or low, rich or poor, ignorant or philosopher, whether he be white, black, red or yellow. At some time he must come face to face with this twofold problem, birth and death. At some point in the life of every soul on earth, these two opposite poles of the proposition of life have forced themselves upon it for consideration. Either must the individual have met them in his own mind or have been brought face to face with the reality in a practical way. There is and has been no escape from this proposition until it is solved, and the solving of the mystery of these two extremities of human endeavor has been the bend and aim of men for all times. Birth is one of the greatest mysteries of existence. It is something no one has been able to explain to the masses. The ordinary man has been wont to look upon birth as a matter of fact. He does not try to explain it, except superstitiously, perhaps, and he takes it as one of the things which must be, and which is, and further than that, he is willing to accept it as a matter of course, and gives it no concern. Death, however, is one of those mysteries with which he is brought sharply face to face. He cannot see the breath rise the bosom and develop the form. He cannot hear the sweet child's voice learn to lisp his name and call him Papa, but rather he sees an absence, a depletion of all things, a form lacking in everything which he has known in that loved one, a barren of all the faculties which he himself has. There remains nothing, apparently, but a piece of clay without any other properties which formerly animated that body, and this sight has struck terror into his heart, for he know not whether this last manifestation upon which he gazed spelled the end of all for that one, or whether there was something unknown beyond. The uncertainty of this proposition brought it sharply and unmistakably before him, and he has been for all time trying to find the solution, the antidote against death. Because he has not wanted to die, he has considered it unnecessary to do so. He does not want to leave all these things which he has met, grown to love and possessed. He cannot understand why, if he was placed here at all, if there was the least purpose in his coming, he should have to be torn away, against his will, to go whither he knows not, into a problematic future state. There seems to be some foundation for the questions which man has asked about his existence. If I come here, why should I go away? If I was not meant to live here, why should I have come? And the one who has thought even deeper propounds the further question: if I can live 70 years, the limitation of 70, which man has sat for his sojourn on earth. If I can live even 30 years or 5 years, yea, even a day, why is it not possible for the very functions which sustain my life for that period to carry it on forever? Is there any cessation of life? Is it life under a definite law, capable of being appropriated in the building and uplifting of the individual? Is not life universal, eternal, Why then should there be so many changes of manifestation? Why should not life manifest its eternality and build one perfect form after its image and likeness, immortal, indestructible? Science has discovered that the human body absolutely renews itself every 7 months, that not one atom or cell of the human body of 7 months ago remains in the present one, and man naturally wonders why, if this renewing process goes on, he cannot go on forever. Why should he be called upon to lay down that body and change his estate or habitation? And in his extremity, man has through the centuries made religion take care of this phase of existence after death, for he has believed that there must be a hereafter, somewhere, somehow. Religion has given him hope that after he has been forced by some unknown power to lay down the body, he would still exist and not be resolved into nothingness, into total oblivion. He has reasoned that this life could not be the end of the soul, and that the soul or the individual man has always and will always live. But notwithstanding the hope of religion, man has been in constant rebellion against taking up his abode in the perfect bliss which his religion has promised. He has devoted his every effort against the encroachment of death. Unlike the phase of existence called birth, man has not been willing to accept death as a matter of fact, as inevitable, and there let the problem rest. Evermore the thoughts portrayed in Hamlet's soliloquy: to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Ah, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams might come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. Having rung in the ears of mortals, and in their oppressiveness, in the desperation of avoiding the final enemy, men have sought fountains of youth, chemicals, the aids of known science, and various other ways of prolonging, even for a short time, the existence which they hold so dear. Fundamentally, the solution of eternal life has been the end and the aim of all man's efforts. Man accumulates a fortune in hope of enjoying it. He gains knowledge for the purpose of enjoying it, either in teaching his fellows or for the plaudits of men. And so, out of this effort for longevity, out of his desire to solve the riddle of the universe, all peoples have evolved their sages and wise men, who have delved into spiritual things, and have endeavored to give the light of their understanding and illumination and wisdom to the masses. But the retarding influence of superstition and stubbornness, the adherence to preconceived beliefs, and the engrossment in everyday activities have precluded the common mass from accepting the higher ideals and the knowledge of the working of laws which would make the very thing that they sought a reality. But there have been souls which have been able to look beyond the appearance of things and discover the laws upon which creation is based. They have found that the same laws apply in the mental and spiritual realms as apply to the material. All law is based upon cause and effect. The one great law of the universe is the law of karma, the decree that like produces like. Cause produces definite unerring results, and here, in this wonderful edict of the universe, like at once, the hope of the spiritually awakened to use this law for construction, and the blasting of the hopes of him who does not know or follow that law. But in this everyday world, in the physical plane of manifestation, man has discovered the law of the conservation of energy. That is, that every particle of matter which has ever existed still exists, only perhaps in a changed form. Nothing is lost, nothing can be lost, and there is only one intent and purpose of creation: to build better, more beautiful, more useful forms of existence. The impulse of all nature is upward and onward. Nature does not favor de-evolution or backward progress. One need not look afar to see the evidences of this truth. The old tree which does not bring forth fruit rots and is resolved back to the original elements. when anything ceases to grow, to expand, to evolve, to go onward and upwards. Nature says, I have no more use for you. You must give place to that which will manifest my exuberance, my spontaneity, my youth, my beauty, the thrill of life, the love of my heart, the ideal of my perfection, and make for the newest creation through which I may express the highest in me, that which will manifest the newest and highest impulses, that which wishes to grow and become the embodiment of the highest concept of its kind. And nature takes the substance of the old tree, which it has refined through its alchemy, and gives it to the new plant, and the wonder of youth is again manifested in the growing creation thus brought forth. Can the conclusion be escaped that if these things work thus in the creation of the plant, the animal, the rock, why not in the greatest of all creations, man? Is God going to neglect and fail to take care and provide for him who is made in God's own image and likeness? Will God allow to be destroyed the only creation in all the universe which has a soul? The only creation in all the universe which may so become the instrument of God, that God can consciously think through him, express his desires through him, and thus, finally, through this faculty of man, intuition, direct and control the entire activity of the universe. If the plant and tree continually take up the substance which formerly formed the old, and which, through the working of nature, can be again appropriated to form the new, why does nature thus continually bring back the same creations, under the law of like produces like? If there is not the desire of nature to reproduce things after their kind, why would not one exist of an oak, a stalk of wheat, or an animal, in that existence forever? Does this not forever explode the theory that if there is any creation or reproduction at all, there can be no sensation of reproduction on all planes of existence, meaning the mineral, plant, animal, and the highest form, man? What once was, can be, and must be. God works under law, and to interfere with that law would be to throw all things into confusion, chaos, destruction. God could no more interfere with one of his laws than he could destroy himself. For to interfere with a single law of the universe would be to destroy everything. Law is the order of the universe, and God is under that law. He is that law. And so, out of these natural phenomena, which man sees all about him, and out of the teachings of the masters who have gone before and demonstrated the possibility of immortality, he gets his hope and assurance of the return, the reincarnation of all things, especially himself. Birth and death are the two opposite poles of man's earth existence. Between them is concentrated all the hope and all the discouragement, all the faith and all the doubt, all the love and all the hate, all the success and all the failures, all the conjectures, all the theories, all the religions, all the efforts of men for all time. Between these two opposites is contained all the research, all the endeavors of men, everywhere, at all times. And still, to the mass of men, the solution of whence came I and whither do I go is still as remote as if it had never been suggested. But thinking man looks upon the planting of the grain of wheat in the ground. He sees it disintegrate and apparently die. The old form vanishes and is apparently resolved into the original elements. But lo, out of the old body comes the tender shoot. He sees it through the appropriation of sunshine and air, through the nourishment of the rich soul, take on form and beauty. He sees its fruition in the air and the reproduction of itself 100 times. In this everyday experience, he gains a twofold lesson. First, he sees that everything must develop, must evolve. Nature says to all, grow or die, evolve or deteriorate, produce or pass on into oblivion. So far as your individual form is concerned, you cannot remain neutral. You cannot be purposeless, vapid, stationary. And then the heart urge in everything. Let me express myself through you, and I shall make you great. Secondly, he sees the lesson of the continual reproduction, the fact that what once was can continue to be. In other words, if a grain of wheat once was and returns, reproduces itself, then the law of nature, the desire of nature, must be for reproduction. That nature is unwilling to let any of its creations fall into naught, and the hope springs up in the heart of the man that if nature rebuilds, reproduces even the smallest grain, how much more must nature desire man, the highest type of creation, to return, go through the process of reincarnation until the perfection which is nature's ideal for man has been reached. As the evolution of things become higher, we pass from the tiny perennial stalk of wheat to the great oak, which is almost the symbol of eternality, and we see as intelligence manifest itself. The possibility of individual initiative in development becomes greater, and the contemplation of the higher forms of creation has filled man's heart full of the joy of living. He has been able to look out upon the wonderful creation which nature has placed around him, and inbreathe the very hope and inspiration of the Almighty in the attaining of his ideal. And man has had brought before him one of the greatest examples of the returning life which is manifested in the world. He has seen the caterpillar spin his cocoon and fix it to the branch of the tree, and remain dormant through the long winter months, covered with snow and sleet, perhaps until the flowering of the sap in the spring, when the stern thrill of life within called it forth. The worm possibly has no concept of what is before it. It follows blind instinct in weaving of the cocoon and gives no thought to the future, if indeed it can think. But as the warm days come, there emerges from out that seemingly lifeless mass of leaves the soul of the caterpillar, the wondrous butterfly, the delight of all lovers of beauty, as it flits here and there in the garden, exemplifying life itself in its scintillating movements. Is it possible that one can fail to draw the lesson of perpetuity of life from this manifestation? Is it possible to doubt that if the caterpillar can evolve into such a beautiful embodiment as this, can again return to the worm through another medium and reincarnate over and over into the beauty of the moth, that this life, which is the same in one manifestation as the other, is not an embryonic example of the existence of man, and that man too has at least the same opportunity as the lower forms of creation? And passing on to the great mystery of birth, man sees from a single drop of protoplasm the development, the unfoldment of the beautiful child, with a mind to think and create, a soul to love. Can man doubt the perpetuity of recreation in such an example? Is there anyone foolish enough to think that through the marriage relation, man can create a mind and a soul? Man produces man from man under the law of the universe. But man is only the receptacle and the crucible wherein that wonderful artistry takes place. He is but the laboratory for the performing of the miracle which he does not understand. But can he say he is the producer of that manifestation? Can he explain why the children in a family are so totally different one from another? Why some are thin, some fleshly, some blue-eyed, some gray-eyed, some large and dark, some small and light, partaking not of the natures of either mother or father. So, at this conjuncture, we are brought face to face with the problem of reincarnation, and we are made to ponder the problem of whence came they, and whither do they go. As we heretofore suggested, all laws work the same. They are coincidentally exact. The spiritual law is, like the mental, a counterpart on its plane of manifestation of what takes place in the material universe. One is naturally confronted with the problem that if all the human beings were living who had ever lived, the whole world would have been covered 7 deep, and the question would naturally arise, where could these souls exist? There is only one solution, and reincarnation offers that by readily showing that only a certain number of souls exist, and that these return again and again until they have gained perfection, at which time will be the millennia on earth, the paradise which the Bible teaches. But the orthodox man and women will not accept this explanation of existence because it is suggested that one must be converted in order to gain heaven, knowing, as we do, that not 1 in 100,000 out of all the millions who have ever lived become converted to Christianity, even in the ordinary sense. It follows that those who were not converted, among which are numbered our brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, sweethearts, would be among the lost. Hence the church people do not wish to accept the doctrine of reincarnation, which would give the lost souls another chance to come back and again live the earth life in a higher form, because they would not meet loved ones. This idea, of course, is preposterous, because under this law we do meet again all that we have met before, and instead of meeting loved ones only to see them damned before the judgment as we do the criminal in court, we see them giving the helping, guiding influence, the lifting impulse, the encouragement, the freedom from the body whose senses pulled down that soul. And these are given another chance in another body, under possibly different environment, to express that higher impulse, that urge which is within each soul from the beginning of eternity. Is it possible, then, to cease thinking about the purpose for which we are placed upon this earth? Can one be satisfied with living for a few short years and again pass on into uncertainty? And man, as he ponders over the problem of existence, sees in the natural world about him the counterpart of which he himself is expected to do. He hears the one great command from the creator of the universe for development. He recognizes that his very existence is dependent upon growth, that he must unfold and develop in order to produce, and production in man's world means evolution, progress. He gleans the lesson from the development of the caterpillar, that life is continuous and eternal, that neither the ideal which produces the plant or animal, nor the soul of man can die, that these are eternal and cannot be destroyed, that reincarnation is but the effort of the great God of the universe to cause man, to help man, to inspire man, to bring forth the perfect creation. And that perfect creation, if the soul of man is indestructible and lives forever, includes the building of an eternal, everlasting body. Reincarnation, in the ordinary sense, conveys the idea of putting back into a body, which rather leaves the impression of putting the soul back into the same old body, at least the same material. We have seen how, in nature, in the plant world, the old is resolved back into the original elements and transmuted into the new, the young, the growing, and it is not therefore strange that this idea has grown apace with the strengthening of the belief in reincarnation. One can readily comprehend, under the law of conservation of energy, how, in a sense, the soul, in its reincarnation, uses the refined old body for the building of a new structure. And so, reincarnation is the great opportunity of man to start to build where construction ceases at death. After death, the soul is powerless to develop. It is then in the resting stage. Much as the caterpillar was in the cocoon, it can then act only through the law of attraction and is waiting to be attracted to those of the same vibration or power of attraction in the flesh, who will again give it the opportunity to take up another body and start its new constructive process. You will remember in the story of creation, the allegory is given that there was no man to till the soul. The soul has no power to develop while in the soul world. It must develop through the instrumentality of the mind, which only takes its seat of authority when the child inbreathes its first breath. The soul receives its impressions through the 5 senses of the body, and it must have a body and a mind in order to develop itself, as well as to in turn till the ground, meaning body material, so that body may be raised to the highest through the refining fires of the soul. And at birth, the period of development starts. Man is given that governor, that guide, that director, which has the power to use or discard all the forces of the universe in his ongoing. And that director is the mind. There can be no building without an ideal, a plan, and that plan, that ideal, must be held by the mind. The mind thinks, and it sets to work all the great substances, the ethers of the universe, towards the accomplishment of its purpose, whether that purpose be towards construction or destruction. Without the mind, man would be but as inert, inanimate piece of clay without the power to create or even move. The mind is the governor, the constructor, the tool which shapes the destiny of man towards everlasting life or towards the destruction of the body, in which latter event the soul must again go through the process of reincarnation in order to again have the opportunity which in its last incarnation rejected. And in this opportunity which is given man, he is placed, as is everything else in the universe, plant, planet, animal, God, under the law of cause and effect. God has endowed man with the greatest of all natural faculties, the mind. As a man thinks, he creates, and he has the power and opportunity to create that which he wills. If he, through the knowledge of this law and the love and ideal in his heart, should miss the mark of perfection, he, through the law of reincarnation, will be of such high vibration that he will be attracted in his next incarnation to parents who will give his soul every opportunity to express in the highest environment that which his soul craves. Do you remember how clearly the Bible states this? When Jesus asked his disciples, "Whom do men say that I am?" And the answer is given that some say he was Elijah, and various of the other spiritual developed men who had lived before him. But when he asked his disciples, his faculties, who he really believed himself to be, the answer came, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." The goal, the ideal, was thus established in his mind, and the building continued for its attainment. Friends, this question is one which every individual soul must himself work out. Suggestions may be offered, but primarily it is a matter of individual unfoldment and satisfaction. No one can think your thoughts for you, no one can develop you, but others may point out what the ideal, the ultimate is and must be, and from their suggestions you may be able to build a new building, from which you may receive the inspiration and hope which your soul has long craved. No one wishes to die. Everyone desires to live and to live forever. If it were not intended that we should inhabit this earth, what would be the purpose of coming here at all? But all men have not understood the process of living. They have not understood the wonderful law under which eternal life may be constructively established. They have not known that any destructive thoughts towards another results in bodily destruction for the thinker. And so they have gone on blindly, as has the animal, and the law of reincarnation has been forced to take care of them in order to give them another opportunity to express that which it was meant for them to express. And this process must of necessity go on until the individual realizes the attainment, the purpose of creation, of existence, what he himself is and must be. This may take centuries. God knows no time, and eventually the problem will be worked out. But there is no need for delay in the perfecting of the body and the doing away with this continual, endless reincarnation. The soul which knows needs not cease its growth, need not go through the sorrow of the passing out and the derangement of the change of environment. It may remain and build as God has intended it to develop and build. It may use that wonderful builder, the mind, and create, fashion, shape its body into the picture, the ideal, the plan which it holds in mind. And this is the lesson. The practical everyday lesson which all must get out of the contemplation, the knowledge of the laws under which all things manifest. The plant returns, rebuilds, the caterpillar changes its form involuntarily, and becomes of the urge of creation within it. Fruit, flower, and tree produce under the law of like produces like, and the process is involuntary because they are not given individual initiative. The animal falls under the same law and produces after its kind, without the opportunity, the faculty to build any more than an animal of itself, because the possibility of conscious divinity, the soul, was not implanted in it at creation. But man, the image and likeness of the Creator, has both the soul and the mind. He has both the God embroidered and the architect himself. God has said to him through his reason and through his intuition, "Son, all that I have is thine, thou in me and I in thee. And if thou wilt recognize me, follow my laws, these things and greater things shall ye do. Nothing is impossible to you." And the great masters of all time have shown man the possibility of godhood. The body has been perfected, made indestructible by those who have in times past followed the intuition within their hearts and have constantly, slowly, step by step, thought upon thought, builded a God mind, a Christ-souled and imperishable body through the observance of the one great law of cause and effect. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And the listening of the God voice within the soul for the guidance, the direction, the hope, the inspiration of the Almighty. And so man is put under the higher law. He is given volition and freedom to accept, to use, to appropriate these wonderful forces and powers of the universe, or reject and cast out of his mind and heart the desire for the uplift, the guidance of the great love for man's perfection. Then what is the true lesson of reincarnation? Is it necessary for us to die in order to be given another opportunity to build the ideal which should be in every heart? Does God wish us to die? Can God die? If not, why should the Son of God die? Friends, true reincarnation is the conscious, unceasing, unflattering building into the mind and body, the ideal of the illuminated soul, and through the bringing forth of the illuminated soul, the Christ, the becoming of the Son of God, the unchangeable, the imperishable image and likeness of God himself, that which is through all times and has all the properties and powers of God himself. Reincarnation to the student of the soul is the transmuting of the baser desires, the baser ideals, the baser metals into that fine, high, pure, beautiful, entrancing ideal, and the conscious, loving, all-engrossing desire of the mind and heart to build that ideal here and now. Then there will be no need to return and perfect that which before had been a failure. Then will all the things be under the dominion and control, the management and subject to the disposition of the soul which has attained. Then will the work have been finished, and sorrow and distress will have been banished from out of the life of such one. God's ideal of you is perfection. God does not mean that you shall have sorrow, sickness, death. God wishes you to have joy and the happiness that comes only from a true relationship with the all-happiness. Look about you and behold the beauty of the unfolding rose. Take its lesson of quiet, calm, trusting unfoldment with only one thought in its heart, only the one ideal before it, that of the expression of the perfect flower. Can we not all, in our ongoing, emulate the example of this bloom by steadfastly, unflatteringly, undoubtingly, holding, moment by moment, the ideal which God has set before us, opening ourselves to the great sunlight of wisdom, which is continually shining within the soul, warmed by the heat of a love which will burn out all dross, guided by an unflattering loving hand and the voice of intuition within the heart, sustained by the great strength which is ever at our call. until we are finally brought into that dream of ages, that hope, that ultimate ideal, where the last enemy will sling out our perfect lives because we have set up the standard of the perfect man, the Christ, the Son of the living God. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description below. Thank you so very much.